Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and welcome as well to of 25 Days of Tonalism, Volume 2. The painting that I've done a study after today was done by Charles Warren Eaton, and it's called Leno Woods. Charles Warren Eaton, we've done quite a few studies after Eaton, not so many in this particular volume, but quite a few in the original 100 Days of Tonalism, and a fair amount in the volume 1. Charles Warren Eaton is a great painter, one of my favorites, and he's always up there. I always say that I can't decide who I like better, if that's Francis Murphy or Charles Warren Eaton, but it's probably Murphy. I don't know. It depends. I've seen, as you progress down through time, you get to see more and more of an artist's work, especially due to sites like Pinterest, and which is pretty cool for collecting images and things like that and sharing them and what have you. I've seen a lot of both artists' work and that have moved well past their masterpieces and into sometimes the area of pot boilers. And in the case of Warren Eaton, I believe he didn't paint for like the last 15 years of his life, or when he got there, he took a huge break from painting, and then when he got back into it, he was painting in this well, some people like it, I don't. He was doing this Italian scenes in this kind of, I don't know, neo-impressionistic, neo-something way that I just didn't care for. Some of his work, though, is clearly it's transcendent and totally awesome, and that's what I like to focus on. And I think it's important as a painter to be a good self-editor, to be aware of the dogs, so to speak, and to eliminate them from your oeuvre. And so you don't get some guy like me down the road saying, well, he was great except for maybe not so great, because they're looking at a bunch of your bad stuff that you let go out into the world. I have really strong paintings, and then I have paintings that are less strong, and then the ones that are weak I paint over the top of, and sometimes I let the less strong ones kind of sit around for a while. I keep them in storage or what have you. I'll break them out, and every now and again, if I just looking at something and decide that I don't care if I ever see it again, and that every time I look at it I see all the problems with it and the things that I didn't do well, or that the places I failed, or perhaps the lack of vision on my part that would be clearly evidenced by the fact I didn't pull it off, the painting I was going after. Then I'll paint over those too. But there are some I let live for a while, and then in some cases I have older work which is, obviously not going to be as strong as my current work, but I let that be as well, because if it was fairly strong for its time, I feel it deserves to live, just to be part of the story of my artistic progression, and that's fine too. Anyway, now I want to remind you that I have some playlists, and I haven't really updated them with things that are going on in Volume 2. I'll probably wait until the end of Volume 2 to do that. I'm, I guess I'm not that fastidious about it, but there is several playlists there, and there's definitely a Charles Warren Eaton one, a Camille Corot, Georgia Ness, and a John Francis Murphy playlist, and all of them contain quite a few paintings and me doing studies after that particular artist, and I thought that'd be kind of cool. Especially, I've noticed some people come to what I'm doing through an affinity with any one of those artists. Not so much Camille Corot, but God, he was great. I just did a study after Camille Corot this week. I kind of got back into doing some a few paintings for the basically what's going to be volume 3 of 25 Days of Tonalism. It's been, I think, since June since I'd done anything on that, because I had a lot of preparation to get ready for my museum show, which is still running. Will be probably coming down this next week or just after. And so I was pretty much focusing on just doing my own thing. But I had a spare hour or so in the studio, and that's what I like to sometimes I like to put one of those on the easel, and really enjoyed doing a study after Camille Corot this week. And what a master, you know, what a master of composition and a master of brush handling. And he's not the world's most awesome colorist, but what he did was always successful and consistent, and that is one of the reasons why he's considered the master that he is. And I certainly get a lot out of doing studies after Camille whenever I do, and that's and there's, God knows, he was very prolific, so there's quite a few more out there to do. I'm always coming across new paintings of his online that I wasn't aware of, and I hopefully will be able to do studies of him for a while. Someone like George Ness, it's a little more problematic because he was fairly popular, still is in a lot of ways. There's a lot of books in print about him and stuff, and I've covered all his real hits, but every now and again, in fact, I've got one that's going to go up on the easel. I don't know if it'll be today or maybe Monday, since I don't usually paint on Sunday, but it's different. It's a second tier piece, but still really very cool and very good. And I'll get a lot from doing that. That's kind of going to be a study in greens. How's it going in the studio? Oh, before I get into that, sorry for the shifting, the last video of my own stuff, which was, gosh, I really don't remember the name of that painting. I think it was Riverside Pasture. I put it up and then I took it down, and then the replacement I put up was the wrong one, so I had to take it down yet again and put it up again. And the case was there. I was just getting a bit ranty about modern art, and those of you that follow the my YouTube channel will know that's a bit of a problem. Not that I hate all modern art. There's quite a bit of it that I think is cool, but I was basically just ranting about people doing work and not really being thoughtful about what they were bringing into the world, and we won't revisit all that here. However, in the first video I put up, I was getting quite specific about some local galleries and artists. I didn't get into names, but anyone that lived here that listened to those videos would have known who I was talking about in a heartbeat. And that's not my purpose or intention to ever denigrate what other people are doing. I think my frustration just comes from, how can I put it, a lack of consciousness or conscientiousness on the part of my fellow human beings sometimes, and really that's not their problem, it's my problem. And for that reason, I don't like to make anyone feel bad because they've fallen short of some artistic height that I may be aware of and they may not. That's just, it's not good. It's not a good thing. So I took it down for that reason, and I know some of you caught the rant, and there was a gentleman who commented, and I really appreciate your comment. Unfortunately, when I took down the video, your comment went with it, and I really wish that YouTube would let you swap out videos that you've posted, but they don't let you do that, and I guess there's good reason for that, since you could swap something for something else that's completely different, and it would be kind of confusing to people, so I can understand that. Anyway, getting into the studio, this last week I spent doing second pass in about six different paintings that had all had the first pass done. I was getting into doing the second pass, and there's a few that I got into or maybe just one at this point, that I got into a third pass, and that's sort of a scene it's just a play off of yellow, really. It's just a tree in the field, but everything's very, very yellow. And not so much gold as I'd say yellow, and more leaning towards bronzy tones, and not not a lot of red in it. It's kind of in this yellow-green area. And yellow is an interesting color because you can push it into the red field or into the green field, but it's almost always left to its own devices. Most yellows are really more of a green than a orange, and for that reason, that's one of the reasons I keep orange on my palette, is because I'm constantly when I'm pushing when I'm doing something with yellow, I need to make sure it's not veering off into the green territory, and the orange in my palette is very helpful for that. I use a color called permanent orange from Gamblin, which is pretty good color, pretty handy. It's not often I paint with it straight up, but I use it to modify greens, I use it to modify yellows, I use it to counteract blues, turn them into grays, things like that. It's very handy. Yes, I didn't always have an orange on my palette, but I added orange about, oh my goodness, 3 or 4 years ago, and I've never looked back. Anyway, these second passes for so far, I'm pretty happy with pretty much all of them. I haven't ruined anything yet, and I try to be... This is a place where I can really mess things up. I have to say the painting usually succeeds or fails based on the first pass, but I can take something that had a decent quality and really mess it up on that second or even third pass if I'm not careful. And generally that's just by overworking things or getting carried away with dry brushing or glazing it. It gets too dark, you know. One thing I have stopped doing for the most part was glazing with black, unless it's a very dark area of the painting that I just want to make sure is pushed into a real dark space. And the reason for this is because I notice whenever I love that effect of the black settling into the little crooks of the paint. However, it has such a darkening effect on my already dark work that I avoid it now. And what I prefer to do actually instead was I'll do a little dry brushing with black. Which is, instead of going into the little pits, it'll come into the little peaks, and that can be pretty effective too. In fact, I'm quite happy with that. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end, and I really appreciate you joining me today and following this series. If you'd like to see, well, if you're digging it, hey, click subscribe. It's easy to do. And also you can follow my work through my website, landscapepainter.co.nz. You can follow the blog through there, and there's also a link to the blog underneath. The blog contains a higher resolution image of this painting than you're seeing now, and also 2 zoom-ins to show the details, so go check that out. I'll be back tomorrow, which is Sunday here, and bringing you one of my pieces. So meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.